First and foremost, Seitan chicken, that is really the combination of using Vital wheat gluten in the recipe. Now, the Vital wheat gluten, when you buy it, it looks like flour or a protein powder. But when you add it to water, what it really does is the gluten, it binds and it makes almost these threads in the dough, so it has a little bit of a pull. And so that's the great thing about making seitan meat, is that it gives you some of the pull that exists in a lot of these meat alternatives, so in this case being chicken. Now, in this recipe we also use some tofu, so that adds a little bit of sponginess to the recipe that you kind of need in chicken. I also used some mushrooms in this recipe, and the mushrooms kind of bring out a meatiness. Now, this recipe was really simple to maneuver with, as really you just take everything and you put it in a food processor, blend it all up really well, and the Vital wheat gluten pulls everything together into almost a dough. And then the original recipe had you slicing up mushroom slices and then kneading those into the dough. Now, I found that didn't really work out too well, as you ended up with these chunks of mushroom kind of sticking out everywhere. So what I did was I actually blended the mushrooms separately in the food processor and then combined them with the Seitan chicken mixture. So the recipe that you just saw was a pretty decent seitan chicken recipe, and this seitan chicken, the recipe did come from Artistic Vegan. There's going to be a link in the description box below to bring you over to the original recipe. Overall, I would say that the flavor of this was pretty good. It wasn't my top choice, but I think that it works for what it is. The texture on the outside is pretty good. However, it does seem to be a bit more spongy, and so therefore that's why I don't think that it's the best solution for a chicken alternative. And also, to me, even with processing the mushrooms, they still seem to be too big of chunks, and so to me that doesn't quite blend into the way the chicken really is. So though this may be a decent seitan chicken recipe, I don't feel that it is a perfect substitution for chicken. If you're gonna maybe put it in a sandwich or deep fried or something like that, that might work out well, because you're gonna hide basically what you see, and you're only gonna get the flavor, and it also may change the texture a little bit of the chicken. Okay, so this seitan chicken combined vital wheat gluten and jackfruit, and of course some other ingredients as well. But the thing to talk about here is really the jackfruit. And so the thing I like about the jackfruit is overall the flavor. I feel like the jackfruit combines well into the vital wheat gluten, the seitan meat, the dough, so to speak, that happens when you put it in the food processor. And the seitan, to me, overall is a better fit when it comes to making chicken. This one, like I said, the jackfruit combines really well, but also it has some other ingredients that worked well in it. Some oregano, some parsley, and I think that was good because that incorporated some herbs that I feel just go well with chicken. Oftentimes when I cook with chicken and I'm grilling it and adding it with other elements in a dish, I find that herbs work really well with chicken, so that they also work pretty well in this recipe. The other call out to this is that this seitan chicken is steamed, and so when you steam it, vital wheat gluten tends to, just like bread, it tends to expand. And so what you need to do is you really need to create a smaller than desired chicken patty, because it's going to expand, I would say, about 25% of its volume. Mushroom has a meaty flavor, but to me, mushroom is a bit more of a ingredient that you would add maybe more into a vegan beef rather than a vegan chicken. So I really enjoyed the ingredients coming together in this recipe that was modified by Veggie Society. And again, a link to their original recipe will be in the description box below as well. Now this chicken as well, it still had a little bit of a sponginess to it, but overall the texture, the flavor was there. Again, I don't know that you can put it on a plate and convince anyone that it's a real chicken breast. Okay, so the last seitan chicken recipe that we made today is coming from a recipe originally by Future Lettuce. This was a pretty popular video on TikTok. I have seen some modifications to this already, as well as some other creators making it. Another creator being Emmy Made on YouTube. But I'm going to share the link to the original Future Lettuce video in the description box below. Now, this seitan chicken was unlike all the others, and so this was challenging but simple in the same sense. I know that might seem confusing, but essentially what you do is you just add flour and water and let it sit and combine and let the gluten kind of activate into that dough. next step is where it gets interesting, and you go through the series of washing the dough, as they call it, and that's almost how it sounds, right? And so if you think back into times when clothes were washed on a board, you would take the clothes and really press them down and work the detergent and the water through the fibers of the clothes. You're almost doing the same thing with this, except you're trying to push the water through the fibers of the gluten in the flour and water mixture into that dough. And so what's going to happen is you're going to start with a bigger ball of dough and run water through it and kind of squeeze it throughout to remove the flour. And so that way the flour's gone, the powder's gone, and all that lasts is the beads and strands of gluten. And so the size of that dough is going to drastically decrease. You're starting with 3 cups of flour, and you're ending probably with about a volume of a little over a cup. And if you work the dough correctly and you shape it correctly and you size it correctly, you can end off with 3 pretty good size, patties, chicken breasts that you can cook off and use. I like that you kind of twist the dough. It kind of toughens it up a little bit. And I also like that you saute up the dough in some oil. What I found is that toughens the outside. And so it makes it so that way it kind of keeps the gluten and everything together, and it keeps that chicken breast patty together. I will say that you really have to fry that gluten though. You need to give it enough time to get enough browning. If you don't, you're going to get this kind of almost gelatinous mess, and it's going to be gooey, and it is not going to be pretty to look at or to eat. So make sure you fry it up enough. And then you just let it continue to cook in the broth, and that What that does is it allows the broth and some of these flavors to get inside of that gluten, moisten it up, and just really kind of put as much flavor in it as possible. And I think that you end off with some pretty good chicken patties. I think that you might be able to get this chicken breast on a plate, and you might be able to make people think that they're getting chicken breast. Now, when they bite into it, they may or may not feel that it tastes just like real chicken, but it looks pretty well to the real thing. The other thing though, like if I was really going to use this chicken, I would probably use it more so into maybe a more Asian inspired dish. I feel that the seasonings that went into this and the cooking and everything, the flavor profiles that come through, I think that it would just work out perfect in more of an Asian style dish. Now, it's not to say you can't use it in other means. That's just my kind of 2 cents in it. But overall, this was definitely an interesting seitan chicken to use and make that is certainly different than the others. But overall, I'm pretty satisfied with this one, and I think that this is a pretty good option to give you a good vegan meat option. So those are 3 different meat alternatives that you can decide and play around with and make them yourself and experiment, but just to give you the option to add to your plate. So continue watching these videos, that way you can figure out how vegan chicken is made and what is best for you.